Hello everyone, Gekko has intrigued me so much that playing with him I was able to bring the Immortal back to this act after a pretty serious and active period in the past. This agent turned out to be one of the most interesting ones in recent times. Although Fate seemed cool too, perhaps only Harbor was disappointing, but he's slowly gaining momentum now. However, all this is not important because today I will tell you about the leader of the Pokemons. I will talk about who this agent is suitable for, on which maps it is most convenient to play with Gekko, and I will tell you about various tricks and tips with his abilities, and much more useful information. Since Gekko is already 6th initiator in the game, you really have a great choice, but who is Gekko best suited for? Almost all initiators require coordinated team actions. The only self-sufficient initiator in my opinion is Fate, because it is comfortable to do most things with her alone, and maybe also KO. With Gekko this won't work. This agent depends heavily on team play, largely due to his abilities, but we'll talk about that later. If you like to make all kinds of combinations, if you have a constant duo, then you will definitely like Gekko. The main thing is to learn how to use his abilities in such a way that it benefits your team, and I will tell you how to do it in this video. If we talk about suitable maps for Gekko, then we can say that almost everything is suitable. The question is whether Gekko himself will be as useful as other initiators on every map. But there is already a question for tier list, I would say. In other aspects, Wingman can set up a spike from almost any location, so the map doesn't matter much to him. Dizzy's short range is also sufficient, and you can come up with ways to throw it almost anywhere, and then pick it up without any problems. Also, you can throw Gekko's Molly to pretty long distances, but the most challenging ability is the ultimate. It is suitable for small or medium distances because it is easy to destroy, but otherwise I would roughly place the maps like this. Personally, the most inconvenient map for me was Fracture, where it is difficult to throw Dizzy and it is challenging to cover Wingman when he's setting Spike. Okay, right now let's move on to the abilities. So let's go in order and start with the signature ability Dizzy. Some people see Dizzy as a full flash, but I believe that this ability is more suitable for gathering information. If we compare it with Face or Sova Reveal, which is not entirely correct, but still, Dizzy is mostly inferior as it doesn't show the opponents directly but only gives an approximate location. But the advantage of Dizzy is that if you throw it correctly, you can use it 5 or more times per round if necessary. By correct use, I mean that you don't need to throw Dizzy somewhere off the map or throw it directly in the face of your opponents, because the hardest part is to pick it up later. Remember that Dizzy has a very large shot area, so use it. Throw it higher so that it can react to opponents from a distance, and do not shorten the distance by giving it to them for control. But also remember that it is quite easy to hide from Dizzy, so look for places where it will have the best view. Just run around in your game, throw it up and see for yourself what can be seen from this height. Speaking of Dizzy's blinding ability, it is more like a bonus, something like a Reina's flash. Everyone throws it just to divert the opponent's side, and for me the situation is similar with Dizzy. If you use Dizzy during a duel, simply throw it to the sides as far as possible, so that your opponent has to adjust their aim. The problem is that just one hit will be enough to destroy him. For example, Reina's flash disrupts weapon stability because you need to fire multiple bullets. That's why you need to use it in combination with other abilities, even with Reina's flash. If you throw both Dizzy and Reina's flash, the enemy will definitely be affected by one of them, allowing you to take advantage. The most important thing with Dizzy is to be careful, because hitting the enemy with the glove doesn't necessarily mean that they will be blinded, but I think you already know this from my video with tests of everything. So yes, use Dizzy with other flashes, even with Phoenix Flash, Breach Flash or Skybird, with any flashes that the enemy knows about and turns away from in advance. The main thing is to throw them in a way that either blinds the opponent with the globe while they turn away from the main flash, or blinds them with the main flash while they're breaking their globe. By the way, you can also use Dizzy as some kind of pop flash. To do this, find a regular Redonite box or object similar to this height, and if you throw Dizzy on the ground, it will fly right over the box. But the problem is that this kind of usage will reveal your position a lot, so be careful with this. Next up is Wingman, which is one of the strongest abilities in Valorant in my opinion, at least for now. One of the most challenging and tense moments in a round is setting or defusing the spike, especially if those interacting with the spike are in the minority. Essentially, Wingman allows you to achieve the main objective of the round without losing firepower. In addition to this, it can also function as a boom bot for gathering information in the early stages of the round. The key here is to use the same principle as with Dizzy, namely to throw Wingman in such a way that it is not too difficult to pick it up later and use for setting the spike. I would use Wingman stun more as a bonus, and you should be cautious with it since it is not that difficult to dodge the stun by simply hiding behind a wall. You might think that you've stunned an opponent and have successfully gathered information, but in reality they're calmly waiting for you. Setting the spike with Wingman also requires caution because, for example, launching it alone and hoping that enemies won't shoot it because it is a cute creature is not the best idea. In such a case, you might just lose the spike, which is the main problem. Wingman needs help, not only with abilities but also with properly taking territory. Just planting the spike and letting the opponents retake it in a 5 vs 5 situation is not ideal, especially without taking good positions. When playing as Gekko, I usually get around 8-10 spike plants, which I consider to be a very good result, especially since you don't always have time to plant that many spikes. Due to lack of hands, the planter is constantly being killed, but with Wingman you have an additional fighter. And of course, in clutch situations, Wingman is the most helpful, since time is extremely valuable and planting the spike can be a problem if the opponent is pressuring you or cancelling the plant. That's where Wingman comes in handy. Or if you want to play aggressively and plant the spike while immediately taking another position, your Wingman can run in one direction while you go in another, already waiting for the opponent. This is where the coolness and power of this agent lies. Moving on to Gekko's grenade. In fact, there isn't much to say about the Gekko's molly. It's probably the most boring ability for Gekko. Essentially, it's like the Chaos Molotov, but the damage is dealt almost instantly instead of their 3 stages. There is 150 damage in the center and 75 damage where the liquid isn't as bright. However, there are still some cool uses for it. Firstly, it throws at a fantastic distance, making it great for various lineups, but there is a problem with that as it travels for quite a long time, plus the time it takes to charge up is also quite significant. Because of this, the opponent will easily have time to defend half of the spike and move away. That's why I think it is better to use this grenade as a deterrent, for example to stop the opponent's push or to check some zone, because one of the main advantages is size. This nade is so large and covers up a significant area. For example, you can see how Navi did it. It is a fairly easy lineup, but it is very convenient for occupying the rocks. In general, there are already a lot of different videos on YouTube specifically about lineups on all maps. So if you decided to play Gekko on a particular map, you can start studying the Molotovs, they will come in handy. And finally, the Gekko's ultimate, his nade. I don't know why, but it reminds me of a shark, maybe because of its appearance, but that's not important. With the ultimate, it is important to understand that it is relatively easy to break and it also has a very long jump, which isn't always helpful. What are the conclusions from this? Don't use the ultimate on open and long sections of the map, because you'll never be able to reach your target. It's better to launch it somewhere through smoke, stunts or while chaos is happening, so that the opponent won't be able to react and break it. You can also make long jump shorter by pressing the fire button again, which many people still don't know about. Also, try to use the ultimate in a way that in case if you don't find anyone, you can easily pick it up and use it again. For example, in a post-plan situation. This will greatly help you. There's no point in chasing your opponent using the full range of the ultimate just because you won't be able to catch up with them to kill them, as the disarm effect will end. If I'm not mistaken, Gekko is the only agent who can use his ultimate in this way again if it didn't work for the first time. It's also cool to use the ultimate with your teammates' abilities, especially those that will distract opponents such as Astro Nebula or Fate's Cage, maybe someone's drone. There are many options depending on your team composition. Even just using Fate's ultimate to prevent opponents from hearing the approach of Thrash can be useful, because it is often broken beforehand, and this way you can reach the target more easily. In general, I don't recommend using this ultimate in solo play, like Killjoy can afford, for example. So that's how the guide turned out. I hope it was useful for you and you highlighted the necessary information for yourself. Thank you very much for watching until the end. See you soon. Bye bye.